I can't easily stop it. It has a clip, this thing, but it doesn't really work.
Whenever you're ready. We're live, so whenever you're ready.
Okay. Can we start at 7:30? We are already live. So welcome everyone, councillors, officers, and members of the public watching online. First of all, item number 1. Apologies for absence. Do we have it?
Yes, we have apologies from Councillor Hillier.
Declarations of interest, item 2. Do we have any of those on items on this agenda? I don't see any. Item number 3, public participation. This is members of the public. So, I do see one, an officer really in disguise. Okay, item number 4 minutes. To approve the minutes of the meeting held on the 25th of May. Councillor Thomas, you proposing to accept? Second that, please. All those in favour? Thank you. Item number 5, finance. To receive the dashboard papers, management account, summary of seal expenditure, investment performance updates, bank reconciliations, and summary of payments. Are there any comments on these, or can we take them en bloc to receive them? Councillor Hampton.
Yeah. I'll say this once more. I looked at the dashboard papers, and obviously around this table we've got a collective responsibility for all the figures. But I note that we're already gone into a deficit, and it's only month 2, an operating deficit, I should be clear on. And I think what we should be doing is asking the chairman of RNA, chairman of TNC, whose responsibility is for the marketplace, to look in at budget to see where the shortfall can be made up. Clearly, we're not going to get the rent from the marketplace this year, or in terms of September the 24th, I think is the date. And we should already be looking at other areas that we can make up that revenue. That was the first point. The second point is page 23. I note the expenditure on pedestrian crossings, and I'm in favour of these pedestrian crossings. But once again, we should be going back to OCC to see whether that funding can come from OCC. They are paying for other pedestrian crossings in other areas, and if some of that budget can come from OCC or even from SODC or elsewhere, then it obviously doesn't impact on us. So just ask again, can we go back to OCC and see what they are spending elsewhere?
On your first point, yes, we have a 10.6k deficit additional to the budget for because of the government policy on the seating licences. We have no choice but to absorb that cost, as we have many of the costs over the last 18 months as a result of the pandemic and the measures that the government has put in place. We should always be on the lookout, as you'll see later in the meeting, when it comes to the spending review, for increasing revenue and reducing costs where possible. And so each chair and each councillor is responsible, as you say, collectively for doing that. And so because we've lost one lot of money doesn't mean that we should have slack which we can use to take up the effort when we lose something. We should be on the alert at all times, and that's why we charge the town clerk for looking at this spending of the council. With regards to the crossings, as I'm sure you know, the county council and the highways authority are responsible for providing all highway measures in the town, funding them, authorising them, and so on. For many years, they have had little money to do that, and the only option we had if we wanted the crossings was to find the funding ourselves. And I'm sure Councillor Gavishak, who is the county councillor, is regularly in contact with the county council office to see if they've got any funding available. Councillor, would you like to comment?
Just pick up on that point, Chairman. I do actually have a bit of time next year. If Councillor Hamilton would like to give me a list of the crossings that OCC has paid for in Oxfordshire over the last, say, year, I don't mind chasing those up and see what they were paid for. And if they are similar to what Henry is proposing in the future. So if you'd like to give me a list of the ones that we referred to, I'll be prepared to follow that up.
Thank you, Councillor Albert.
If you can speak to his colleague next door. So I believe we'll have the answer.
Well, I think the point that Councillor Albert was making, if you're aware of towns that have had crossings
Aware
provided,
of towns, yeah.
funded by OCC,
Yes.
can you please let
Yeah.
let Councillor Albert and Councillor Gabachak know
Yeah.
about those towns, and we
Okay.
can investigate why they got funding and we didn't,
Right.
if they exist, of course. Councillor Gabachak.
Well, I actually pointed out on the crossing that council.
Point of order.
Point
Point of order.
No,
Point of order.
What's the standing order? What's the standing order item that you're raising?
Incorrect.
No, that's not a point. That's not a.
At the consultation.
No, can you be quiet, please? You can't just interrupt because you don't agree with what someone's saying. That's not a point of order.
Secondly, on his point, the two recent crossings, as he is perfectly aware, and I've dealt with these questions before, he is perfectly aware the Rubble Hill crossing is going to be fully funded by OCC, and the Swiss Farm is funded by Hampton Town Council. If we want to improve the measures for the residents of Hendon, I have always made it abundantly clear that OCC highways actually pay for the basic roads, making them safe, the repairs, potholes, within the constraints that they have. But if we want absolutely on, the answer is on those two crossings, I'm not going to go back to OCC. I'll actually ask them on that because I've been absolutely truthful and clear. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Okay, so can the proposal that we receive the accounts? Councillor Williams will vote on that. Councillor Gabachak seconded that. All those in favour of that proposal? Okay, thank you. Item number 6, expenditure. To approve the following items of expenditure, which is the appointment of the council's HR consultant from September 2021, as on pages 39 and 41, which is the town clerk's report. Would you like to speak to that, or does it speak for itself?
Thank you very much. I hope the report speaks for itself. Just to confirm that although the amount of expenditure falls within my delegated powers to spend, it is this committee that is responsible for appointing the council's HR consultants. And obviously it is a very important contract. We don't have in-house HR expertise, so it's important that we do have a professional consultancy. Sorry, I should clarify, we don't have in-house staff HR expertise, Councillor Romans. But yes, so it is important that we do have good consultancy in place. We have been using Peninsula for the past 3 years, and they have been good. However, they are also quite expensive. We have been looking around at various other options, and you'll see that my recommendation is that we go with a company called Southeast Employers, who represent the majority of principal authorities and also a number of town and parish councils in the southeast. The reason that their cost is considerably lower than other firms is because town and parish councils are in effect subsidised because of the rates that are paid by the principal authorities, and that's why they can offer it at such a low rate to town and parish councils. I would say that from my investigations, all of the consultants did seem very, very good, and I would be happy using any of them. However, what gave Southeast Employers the edge was the fact that they were local government specialists, and they also come highly recommended from other colleagues in the town and parish sector.
That's right.
I'm just looking at the tender, and it says e-learning plan. What exactly would they be offering us in the way of e-learning?
So they, so at the moment they offer in-person training on a wide variety of issues, a lot which are more specialised for councils, which is very good. So they do a wide range of councillor training, which is also very good. On the e-learning, whilst Peninsula and White House have kind of online webinars that you can access at any time, South East employees don't at the moment. However, they've said that is something that they are looking at.
Okay. What exactly is the course content?
The course for e-learning or in person?
Well, e-learning.
For e-learning, none at the moment. There isn't any, but we'll have to see what the kind of what is forthcoming.
Yeah, I mean, the reason why I'm asking about it is evidently e-learning and development is a key pillar, let's say, of a modern HR strategy. So it would be interesting to see what they're proposing here. And I mean, how it also benefits how it benefits yourself as well, dealing with staffing matters. So it would be interesting to see what exactly is there. But I mean, aside from that, I mean, I've read through this proposal, I think it's common sense. So, yes, this is what I've read.
Would you like to propose?
Yes.
The motion that's in 5.1.
I'll propose approval.
That's right. Before the second, do you want to second that? Yeah. Would you like to speak?
Yeah. I think like most of us around this table, I'm very passionate about saving money. And so I'm sure this will get our full support. I know SODC have used South Eastern employees before, and I thought they're very good, but I'd say to save £3,215, I think it's a very good start to what we're proposing to do over the next 8 or 9 months. So because I'm so passionate about this, I will support it. Thank you.
Councillor Clement, and then Councillor Clement.
It was just, I fully support the motion. I think it's the most sensible one. But just point of curiosity, why did we move away from South East what we employed before? Have we moved away each time based on price?
That's a very good question. I certainly wasn't around at that time. I believe Liz, the accountant, may have been around, but I don't know if she has the details. It may well have been an individual consultant who at the time. However, I have got a lot of very, very good recommendations from other clerks. So yeah.
When I was mayor, we used South East employees back 15 years ago, and they were very good at that time. And then the person that we were dealing with left, and I can't remember if that was the sole reason or whether it was cost as well, but the service wasn't as good as it had been. It certainly had been very good in my experience. They knew what they were doing and they provided the time and the expertise. And as regarding training, that is very important because the law constantly changes. The government passes legislation or enacts legislation which changes employment rights. We don't have the joy of the EU doing that for us anymore, but I'm sure the government still does. Councillor Hamilton, you wanted to speak?
Yeah, it's just I too support the motion to go with 5.1. I'm very pleased that Councillor Arlott has taken a leaf out of my book in terms of making saving. So let's go with that.
Okay. Do you want to reply at all?
Yes.
Yes, okay, go ahead.
Yes, so I propose the motion of acceptance.
So, all those in favour of that proposal? Item 7, 2022-23 budget. This is the timetable for that budget, and you have that on page 43, which as far as I can tell, is the same as we did last year. You haven't seen any changes, have you, Liz?
The only change is the planning so that budgets are now included with on the same
Right.
day as RNA planning. Two businesses will consider their own budgets. Otherwise, it's exactly the same thing that list.
Now, we have appointed a value for money working group. I can't remember who was on it, but we have plenty of time to arrange it. We should arrange a date.
It is.
Is there a date for the?
First week of September.
Yeah, there isn't a specific date. We've got the time. It's been arranged. We need to do that in some way. But I don't really need to do that. So I propose that we accept this proposal. Seconding that. All those in favour? Item number 8, financial regulations. To approve an amendment to regulations to facilitate credit card refunds.
So propose.
Yeah, I'm happy to second that. Do you want to say anything now, Town Clerk, or the council? Or together the report? I think the report is very clear.
I think the report speaks for itself, and unless the accountant would like to add anything.
Okay. All those in favour of that proposal? Thank you. Pensions discretionary, pensions discriminatory policy. Pensions discretionary policy, to approve a policy, reapprove the policy in line with the stipulations of the local government pension scheme. That's on page 47. And I've checked in advance with the accountant whether any changes from last year, and she said yes, the date of the next review. So, what you tell me. So nothing in the body of the document. Does anyone have any comments, or can we have a proposal to Councillor Flax? Councillor Gabishak, you seconding or scratching your head? Anyone to speak? All those in favour? Thank you. Item 10, the comprehensive spending review. To receive a report on the progress of the review. So note, this is by no means the end of the story, which doesn't actually stop, as Councillor Hamilton pointed out earlier. We all have a responsibility to look for savings and improve the council's finances. Is there anything you want to say before we discuss it?
I think the review kind of speaks for itself, and on the basis that councillors have read it, I'm very happy to answer questions on it. Just a couple of things that I think it is important just to pull out. So it is anticipated that there will be a significant reduction in the deficit for the coming year, for 2022-23, assuming there's no impact from the pandemic. But even so, we should be able to see a significant reduction. And the ultimate aim would be for a balanced budget in 23-24. We call it a comprehensive spending review, which can mean various different things to various different people. The important thing to note here is that we're not looking at any areas of council services to kind of cut or cut back on at all. This is simply looking at the services that we currently provide and how we can get best value for those services. And the last thing really to mention is that more detail on exactly what the projected savings will be and the increases in income will be coming through the budget setting process as we move forward in the next couple of months, as you've just approved.
Okay, I'll come to you in a second, Councillor Gabishak. The report does comprise a number of different types of items for review. Some of them are short-term, simple gains, like the one we just discussed for our HR contract. Some of them will take a bit more thought and effort, and some will be more long-term. But when I added up the short-term, highly achievable gains, which we should be able to do in the course of the next few months, I made the total £24,300 in simple savings. And in addition, we do also expect that as the adventure golf cuts in, we'll receive significant income from that in the course of the next 12 months, hopefully sooner than that. So there are already considerable concrete proposals here for real savings. Councillor Gabishak, you want to speak?
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, forgive me, I've got a huge track on the right, so sorry, I can't turn that way either. So, can I make two proposals? If they're seconded, then I will speak. The proposal is on page 56, that we note the report. But I'd like to add another recommendation to that we value for money to actually take a comprehensive look at this. And if that motion if those two motions are seconded, I will speak. Thank you, Chairman.
We'll have to take them as one, or we have to do them separately. Do you want to take them as one with two parts?
Yeah, take them as one resolution, but in two parts.
Yeah.
Firstly, note the report, secondly, set up
Yeah,
call on the VFM to work out.
exactly.
Yeah, okay.
Yes. Okay. So, yeah, so if you want to speak to that.
Yes, and then I'll speak very, very briefly. Well, firstly, thank you to the town clerk for a pretty comprehensive thing. It's been a difficult time. We have been hit by COVID. There have been income streams that have gone down. But in fact, the town clerk has looked at this very, very thoroughly, and there is potential to actually produce a direct budget. But the reason why we have a value for money committee, which is Councillor Arlett, Councillor Hillier, Councillor Hinton, Councillor Clark, and Councillor White, the reason why we have a value for money committee is so that they can look in detail at some of these proposals, and maybe also suggest others as well going forward. But I think that it's very, very good because it actually deals with big and small. There's a level of detail in here that our town clerk should be praised for. So therefore, my proposal is to note the report and send it to my favourite level give it. We'll have another look at this going forward anyway. Thank you.
Thanks, Alan. Do you want to speak as well, Secretary?
So yeah, I'll speak now and I'll speak once as it were, although I might take a couple of minutes because I have been through it in some depth. I'm very pleased to see a comprehensive spending review as a title on the agenda. I personally would put this down as the start of the comprehensive spending review because as Councillor Gavashak has said, it does need to go to VFM, at least people need to go through it line by line to see whether there are other areas where we can get some spending. So that's why I'm seconding the proposal. I would say that it would usually happen at the start of the civic year, but the start of a civic term, but we're 2 years in, but we're doing it now. But now is a good time to do it anyway, so let's get on with it. What I would say about it is we obviously got to look at the costs, and yes, I share the point of view in terms of there's been a pandemic and there's been some difficult times and difficult revenue streams, but we are looking at a balanced budget. But that's a balanced budget once we have taken share gains into consideration. And I always wanted to go down the route of trying to get to a point where we weren't drawing down money every year, but we were retaining that money in our income in order to invest in the future or invest in the infrastructure of the town, be it bricks and mortar. And at the moment, last year, obviously, there was about 350k of drawdown, but there's basically 160k that comes off right from the beginning in order to get to a balanced budget. So I think we should do absolutely everything we can to try and get some of these costs down. And I hear what the town clerk says in terms of he's gone through it in some depth, but I think there are other areas because if you go back over the last 15 years, you will see that in certain years we get closer to a balanced budget than in other years. And this year, clearly, given the pandemic and all the things that have happened, we've not been able to get anywhere near a balanced budget. But there have been years where we've got to a balanced budget or within £50 of a balanced budget. And that's because we've been very, very strict with the chairman of each of the committees to say, you need to hit your numbers. And because revenue minus cost equals profit, and if you're down in one area, then try and build it up in another area and see how we can deliver. Of course, there are aspects of the town that we invest in for the good of the town, and that's clear. For example, we may not charge a huge rent on whatever lawn it might be, or whether it be the headway, Brunner Hall, whatever it might be, because that's something for the infrastructure for all of the town, as it were. So I have been through this in some depth, and I wondered whether now is the time to highlight the aspects that I think probably do need looking at specifically, or whether we should perhaps email those aspects in an email to the town clerk might be easier. And if we all email the town clerk the key points. One of the areas I will come on to talk about is I do think we should look at the mayor's allowance again. It's on this list. I'm not saying that it should be fundamentally changed, but when Councillor Hillier put forward numbers from SODC this year, that they were paying their mayor, their chairman as it were, versus Marlow and versus Stratford-on-Avon. Again, value for money. Look at that. Look at other councils to see what they're paying them at. And no way am I suggesting we cut it during the year or take it away. It's just at some point during a civic cycle, we should be looking at what other councils are funding in terms of their and benchmarking against other councils as well. So Stratford-on-Avon, Windsor, Maidenhead. Let's see what they're doing, because clearly with the pandemic, we do have the opportunity to build back better and build back slightly smaller or slightly bigger as a council. And that means we could have fewer people doing more or less people doing slightly less, or working better together and being more efficient in terms of their output. And if we can save money on here by doing a really thorough analysis through value for money, then great. I also add the point, perhaps value for money should look at discounts, because there are a couple of things on here where we do get discounts. I know Southern Plant, we get discounts, for example. I know some other areas. And we used to have a discounts book that Liz put together. I don't know whether it's still used or whether it's still kicking around or whether, but it certainly was there. And if there are, for example, if Park Services need a widget, whatever it might be, and they know that if they go to one versus another, then there's a discount, then albeit that's good for us. So why not have value for money look at it? So that's why I'm happy to support this motion.
Before I come back to you, Councillor Roberts, I just want to explain a couple of things which might have confused people in Councillor Hamilton's speech there. When we talk about a balanced budget, what we're talking about is, look at page 11 of the agenda for this year's budget. What we're talking about is the operating surplus deficit. So we are not including below that line the items on gains and losses on share transactions, which are paper gains and losses and not real gains. And so it's the line that's in bold. For this year is 213. It's that line in bold, which is the one that we're aiming for. And we put the gains losses on share transactions because we understood that was a government requirement. And in fact, that's something that we need to review, because I think part of our training showed us that that doesn't have to be there, and it is confusing for some people. And in fact, you haven't quite made clear the distinction on our investments between the gains and losses on share transactions, which appear on page 11, and our investment income, which is at the top of page 12, under forecast for 2011-22 in the middle column of 150,000, which we gained from dividends and so on from our investments. But those two are different things. Those are different figures that do different things, and it's important not to confuse them. We also, and it's important not to confuse the third item that we have, which is when we draw down capital for capital projects. Again, that's separate from the revenue stream that we take from investments, and that's separate from. So it's important to understand the difference between those three figures. Councillor Arthur, if you want to speak now.
Yeah, just a bit while I've got items. I want to commend the town clerk for this report, although it's early days yet. There's some really interesting items down there. When I was elected 4 years ago, and these Jones may well remember, I think it's been about 3 or 4 days, I sat up in the room there for 2 or 3 hours and went through lots and lots of payments where I thought we could save money. So obviously I'm very passionate about this. And that's why I wish to get involved, obviously, with the value for money. Councillor Hamilton mentions the mayor's expenses, and to be honest, it's not just spending the money, it's the amount of time and the cost that goes into the mayor as well. But for some reason, he didn't mention anything about the chairman and, like I said, the leader of the opposition, not getting a penny for this council, where if he was to check with SLDC, he may well wish to bring these figures back to the next meeting and see what the kind of money that SLDC are paying to the chairman, vice chairman, leaders, etc., etc. It's an unbelievable amount of money that they are paying out. So, we're paying out, in big schemes, we're just paying out, I wouldn't say pennies, but it's not as a bigger issue as I believe that Councillor Hamilton is making out to be. There's a couple of items I will just pick out now. I could go all through, I think we each one of them today. But the item I on page 55, which was the Littleton refurbishment, we don't know if we're going to save £16,000 because we don't know what guarantee we've been given when we pay to these bins. In theory, it might only last 6 months, it might only last a year. So, we could have wasted so much time on that. It may well even cost money in the end if we're not careful. So I think we need to delete that. I don't believe. Well, we may have some money on budget for this year, but maybe next year it means something different. And one of the good ones, which I picked up before, is the wedding advertising. We can pay a mammoth amount of money on advertising for weddings, but I've never seen the expenditure and the income to see what the difference is. And I'd be surprised if there's that much profit. I'd like to think I am wrong on that one. I think all the other ones here and other ones like that as well, I think when we have the value for money meeting, and there's a lot to go for, there are savings to make. And there are savings to make without the town council losing out on items that we wish to do. We're not going to make cutbacks just for the sake of making cutbacks. I've just got one wish that I hope the town clerk will take on board. I'm not sure how many people are colourblind, but I can't read red and black or black and red. I just cannot do it. So if you would change those colours for me, even if you put yellow on red, I can probably see that I cannot read red and black. So if you could change that, I appreciate it. So other than that, thank you very much, Dan, for an excellent report.
Thank you, Councillor. There was one other remark that I think was made about the aims of this council on its budgeting, and there was talk about there being the potential for balanced budgeting in 2 years' time. And in discussing the report with the town clerk in the lead up to this meeting, and as he was writing it, we believe it's more than potential. We believe it's highly achievable. That subject to further pandemic expenditure and other unknowns, it's perfectly possible by looking at our costs and improving our income streams. It's more than possible, it's highly likely that we will be able to set a balanced budget on the operating line of the account in 2 years' time. Is that a fair comment to make?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so we have a proposal from Councillor Devonshire. Do you want to reply to any of that? Or? Yeah, okay.
Thank you, Chair. I'll pick up on Councillor Hamilton's comment that yes, I think all councillors across the council as well, you should email the town clerk and actually come up with any further ideas that we can do, and I wish the value for money working very, very well. I mean, a balanced budget is so that we can sustain the finances of the council going forward for many, many years. I cannot agree with the investment not being used to actually provide services for Henley Town Council. We have £4.2 million of investments at the moment. Share prices go up, they go down, but we prudently and wisely use 190,000 of that income to actually support the services, the fantastic services that we do. So therefore, I definitely put a marker down that should continue. I'm also passionate about getting the budget into balance. One thing I would say is that if you look at the finances of the country, I think Rishi Sunak would be extremely pleased with our small deficit that we have created because of COVID. And if he was only looking at a 200 grand deficit, then I think he would be absolutely over the moon. He's not. I think coming out with, well, I'll just say coming out with trite comments, build back better, it's just a slogan, that's all. We all want to build things better. We all want to improve things. And the reason why, and finally, we've got to bear in mind that we town councillors are volunteers. We don't get paid at all. None of the chairs of any committee get paid. The only person quite rightly that gets paid is the mayor. Because the mayor actually, during the mayoral year, actually does a hell of a lot of engagement and is the figurehead of the council in the town. So therefore, that mayoral allowance should not be chopped in any way, shape or form, because it's there for all councillors to have the opportunity to do the mayoral role without losing that. Although, as I'm sure all mayors around the state will know, that at the end of your mayoral year, you will have paid out a hell of a lot more money than the mayoral allowance, and you will have committed acres of time to the job. I'm sure Councillor Miller, the mayor, will actually attest to that. Actually, goes on. It's been a brilliant job. So the final thing is, bear in mind we are volunteers. There's a small allowance that we take from the public purse to actually run the show, which is just the mayor's allowance. Therefore, can I formally propose the two things: that we note the report and thank the town clerk for it, and secondly, we refer it to the Value for Money Committee to go through it with a fine-tooth comb, with any other suggestions, and then it will come back to this committee again. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay. Right, all those in favour of that proposal? Okay, thank you. That's unanimous. And yes, thank you, Town Clerk, and the officers, of course. We've helped prepare that, which, as we've noted, is just the first step on the journey. Item number 11, exclusion of public and press. And to consider that the public and press be excluded from the remainder of the meeting in accordance with the Public Bodies Admission to Meetings Act 1960, as publicity would be prejudicial to the public interest by reason of the confidential nature of the business. I so move. One second for that, please. All in favour? Thank you. Well, thank you, Mr. Press, member of the press. You can stay, Kath. Two. Okay, item number 12, 353, 357 Ready Road. Do you want to join us at the table?